What is up, Rams house? Here to deliver the sad news of the Rams losing a tight game to the very competitive Carolina Panthers, who just came to play today against the Los Angeles Rams. It kind of felt like a mix between Panthers coming to play, bringing their A game, especially being as beat up as they were. It was impressive to see what they were able to do against the hottest team in the NFL in the Los Angeles Rams. And it really did feel like a combination of they came in with a great game plan, they executed it as well as they could have. And the Rams also came in and just kind of weren't, I don't want to necessarily say they came out flat, but they made a lot of mistakes and a lot of things that you just aren't accustomed to seeing with this team, especially when you talk about, not turning over the football. Matthew Stafford obviously wasn't on an incredible run 10 weeks in a row without throwing an interception. Then he has an interception, he has a pick six. One of the interceptions wasn't his fault, I wouldn't think, just because it bounced off the helmet. But he has that, and then obviously the fumble at the end of the game. So it's stuff you're not used to seeing. And then the Rams defense felt like they were just playing pretty soft all day, especially against this Panthers offense that has been very, very inconsistent all year. They're one of those teams that's very brutal to watch when they're just off their game. But when they're on their game, they can have games like this. The Panthers can. So it was annoying to see. It kind of reminded me the game plan the Panthers had against this Rams offense or against their defense. I just kind of was reminded of those old 49er games. And I say old as in just like 5 years ago, where the 49ers would just outpossess the Rams. They would just run the ball down the throat constantly. And when you go back and look at kind of like the game stats of the game, the numbers do back that up. I mean, they just had carry after carry. They had over 30 carries on the ground between Hubbard and Dowdle. And it felt like the Rams were just kind of playing soft, and the Panthers were really having that success on the ground. To be able to gash this defense, it just felt like they were wearing the Rams out. And it did continue to feel like the Rams weren't in those third and long scenarios a lot of the times to be able to let their pass rush really be unlocked. They were a lot of the times in those 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2 scenarios. The Panthers would either get it or then they would get to a 4th down and they would convert on a 4th down there. And you had 2 4th down conversions the Panthers had that were explosive touchdowns. Another thing you're just not accustomed to seeing. Forbes definitely took a step back today from what we're used to seeing out of him and the way he's been playing. That was surprising to see, but I really feel like it all started with how well the Panthers were able to run the football on this Rams defense. And just kind of even early on in the game, that first touchdown that the Panthers had was that swing pass to Chuba Hubbard, kind of like a screen design there on 3rd down, went all the way up for a touchdown. A lot of runs. Bryce Young had his really good plays, but it didn't feel like he was carrying the team for the offense. And it just felt like they were really leaning into that run game, and it was working. The Rams just couldn't find a way to stop it. And just very frustrating to see. The Panthers had over 160 rush yards, which we're not accustomed to seeing as Rams fans. They've been very good against the run, been very good against really good running backs this year. And today it just felt like it took a step back for one reason or another. I think the Panthers executed well. I also just think the Rams didn't bring their best game today. And going back to that offense again, the 2 interceptions from Stafford hurts. Again, one of them coming in the red zone. So you take off points there, give the ball to the Panthers, momentum swing early on in the game. Then you have that pick 6 that he throws, just again, uncharacteristic, throwing it behind and a little bit late on an out route. Takes that one all the way back to the house. And it felt like from the very first few plays of the game, it felt like Stafford was just a tick off. And you can win games with Stafford being a tick off. Like, he is that good where you can still find ways to win. But we're not used to seeing him turn over the ball at this level and at this rate. And obviously you give 7 points there to the Panthers. Rams only lose by 3 points in this game. And so it all just kind of compounded in this sort of way. And it's hard to win football games when you turn over the ball that many times. And that's just kind of what the case was for the Rams, especially in the case of the Panthers really possessing the ball, having long drives. Whether they scored a touchdown on the drive or not, they had those long drives to chew up the clock. And the Rams turning over the football played right into the hand of the Panthers kind of attacks that they had going into it. And that was frustrating to see. I just felt like the Rams offensive side of things, I felt like we were moving the ball really well, and the stats would back that up too. If no matter how much you want to look into stats or not, I mean, the Rams had more yards than the Panthers. They had more passing yards than the Panthers. They almost had the same amount of rushing yards as the Panthers. And that was kind of frustrating to me because the Rams had 152 rushing yards in this game between Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. And that came on 20 combined carries between both of them. And with how close this game was, I feel like the Rams should have leaned a little bit more into the run attack. It felt like we were just kind of passing it left and right. But the Rams were having one of their best days on the ground and just didn't stick to it as much as I would like to see. it's obviously easy for me as just a fan in Colorado to say that, not being an actual coach and having the accountability. But I felt like the Rams really had things working there on the ground. And obviously, you're having those interceptions in the air with Stafford and the fumble at the end of the game. It just felt like maybe they got away from the run game a little bit, but also, again, it's just like I feel like a lot of it did come down to those turnovers, and they were in big moments there. Again, having it happen in the red zone and then having it happen late in the game on your last drive you would have had with the fumble there. It's just stuff you're not used to seeing. It's obviously hard playing in the rain, but again, the Rams offense was able to move up and down the field. Shout out to that Puka Nacua catch. That was absolutely insane. I know this is a loss, but you got to take your wins somewhere in there. That was a crazy catch. And I just felt like, again, I don't think this is going to be something that we look at as Rams fans as a repeated pattern that we see from this Rams team, especially with what they've shown us this year. I don't expect this kind of play to continue where you're turning over the football, where you're making these bad mistakes, where you're letting up long drives with a lot of good running yards there. I just don't. That's not what this team has shown you all year. And so, if I'm a Rams fan, and if you guys are a Rams fan in here watching, wondering if it's time to panic because you lost to the Panthers, well, first off, give credit to the Panthers for what they're able to do. They're getting close to leading their division. They are incredibly hard to predict because they're such an up and down team, but they did come in there with their injured roster and they beat the Rams obviously at home. But I just don't think this is going to be something that we continue to see as Rams fans. And the kind of streak that they were on, it felt like you were kind of due for one of these games and you'd hate to lose it, but it didn't feel like they were going to continue to win after win after win. And I just felt like we're going to have one of these somewhere in the schedule down the stretch. So I guess get it out of the way. I just don't, with how much the Rams have shown us, how disciplined they've been, how good Matthew Stafford has been with just not turning over the football. I don't want to see people turning on him all of a sudden and wanting to get rid of him, wanting to cut him. I've seen people say that's crazy. And I just don't think this is going to continue to happen. Hopefully this is a nice wake-up call because you obviously win and you are able to have fun winning games, but you really don't learn as much, I guess, when you're winning games than when you're losing them. So hopefully this serves as a wake-up call for the Rams as the season goes on. Because, I'm sure this definitely shocked them to go into Carolina and lose the way that they did, especially with how close they were. And again, the defense, I don't think we've seen a performance like this in a while. So I think we got to give them a little bit of grace, as frustrating as it was to see that. As far as some of the standout players I have, because while there were some frustrating things in here, players still played well, and I still want to highlight them. Braden Fisk had a really good game. I believe he had a couple sacks. If not, he had definitely a bunch of hurries. He had a sack in the game. He was disrupting things. Puka Nacua, his stats don't look insane when you go back and look at it, because if you just look at the leading receiver in terms of yards was Xavier Smith. So he's on there as far as a standout player, 3 catches, 82 yards, and he was really impacting things. Puka Nacua, though, had the 6 for 72, that insane catch. That's part of the reason he made the standout player list. Davante Adams, just continuing to be a menace in the red zone, having those 2 touchdowns in the game on that play extension too, when the pocket was kind of broken there. Continued to be a good addition. And I think on that last drive, they showed the shot of Davante Adams being wide open on a crosser. Stafford just didn't see him. That obviously hurts a lot more now, knowing the way that our last drive ended. You know what could have been if we hit that one to Davante Adams there. So, Davante Adams definitely on the list of a standout player. Braden Fisk, Xavier Smith, Puka Nacua, a lot of wide receivers. But I also think just hats off to the Rams run game. Again, I know we lost, but I did like to see what we were able to do on the ground with Blake Corum and Kyren Williams. They were just gashing the teams. Obviously, you saw Corum get into the end zone. You saw Kyren get into the end zone. So those were kind of the players that stood out for me. Let me know if I'm missing any there. But yeah, overall, just frustrating game. Frustrating to lose this one. I know that especially NFC West fans are probably going to be laughing that we lost this game, but I just think it's obviously such a week-to-week league, but especially for these Panthers with how incredibly unpredictable they are, I don't think I gave them enough credit for what they could do, but I also just feel like the Rams played a little bit too sloppy. Obviously, those turnovers to be able to win this game. I think if the Rams played this game 10 times against the Panthers, the Rams probably win 8 out of the 10. So it's unfortunate that you came out, played this way, ended up losing the game. You obviously are 9-3, so you have a lot of margin to be able to lose games like these. But obviously, if you want to win the NFC, get that number 1 seed, losses like this hurt. They definitely do, because you still are going to play a team in the Lions. You're still going to be playing a team in the Seahawks to try to get that number 1 seed. And if you want to be serious about it, you can't drop games like these. So that's definitely the part that hurts the most about this. But I guess it's good that we're not in a hole like we have been in the last couple of seasons, trying to dig out of it late in the season, get as many wins as we can to stay alive. That's the optimistic side, I guess you can look at it, but definitely a frustrating game. There's no excuse. The Rams should have played better. The Panthers had a good game plan, but the Rams definitely had enough talent. They have the better coach to be able to win this game, and they didn't. And it's really weird. If you told me going into the game that Bryce Young was going to outplay Matthew Stafford, I would think that you're crazy, especially with the way Matthew Stafford's been playing. I think the game plan the Panthers had going into this one definitely helped Bryce Young with the heavy run attack, the screens, quick passes, get him in a rhythm in that way, not really like rely on him to win the game, but he made some big throws there down the stretch, especially on fourth downs, like beautiful throws there. And he didn't turn over the ball once. Matthew Stafford turned it over 3 different times. So again, it's kind of crazy when you look at it to see that he outplayed Matthew Stafford. Just would not have expected that. But from here, we are going to play the Cardinals next week, and hopefully we're going to be able to bounce back there against the Cardinals. They're a feisty team as well. You can't take lightly. The Rams do seem to respond really well to losses, especially in this season. They do have the right kind of guys to be able to do that when we've seen that. So I expect them to be able to respond and get a win, but definitely a frustrating performance. I want to see what you guys have to say about all this. Thank you all for jumping on live with me and dropping some comments. Donald says the defense, shaking my head. Yeah, that was definitely a frustrating performance there by the defense, especially just like I felt like we saw the same story on multiple drives in a row where the Panthers were just driving, possessing the ball for a while. They outpossessed the Rams. Let me check at the stats here. Outpossessed the Rams 35 minutes and 16 seconds to the Rams 24-44. So it was just frustrating to see how long these drives were able to be for the Panthers. And a lot of them ended in points. Seeing those fourth down conversions were frustrating. The Rams didn't get off the field one time on fourth down out of the 3 attempts for the Panthers. So definitely frustrating performance by the defense. I do expect them to respond, but in the moment right now, it definitely stings. Cue the fade. He said, I like that name. He says, McVay could not help himself and just run the dang ball. I'm with you there. I understand you have Puka Nacua, you have Devontae Adams, you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, Matthew Stafford, who was not on his best game for sure, but he's still a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he still had some crazy throws in there. I did feel like they should have leaned into that run game. This wasn't a blowout. This wasn't a game where you're having to pass the game to get back in it. The Rams obviously putting up over 150 rushing yards. It felt like the Panthers never really had an answer for it. So it was frustrating to see the Rams to kind of like they went away from that, as you mentioned there. I wish they stuck to it, but obviously, even with that kind of game plan, even with not running the ball as much as we like, they still almost won this game. And unfortunately, it just came down to a turnover there. 202 NBA, thanks for coming in. He says, pure embarrassment, nothing else. This team makes too many mistakes for my liking. All 3 of our losses, we had multiple turnovers. Definitely frustrating. It's crazy to see just kind of flip that the Rams went on from a week ago of like being crowned the best team in the NFL and all the media attention that they were getting to doing this. I still think that they're the best team in the NFL, and they just need to play to that level. But you definitely have a point there with the losses that we've had. It's those turnovers, and that most of the times will lose you games if you're turning over the football like that. So definitely frustrating. I still have hopes for this team as the season goes on. I'm not giving up on them, and I'm not jumping off. I didn't even get on the bandwagon. I'm just a Rams fan for life. But there's nothing that's going to make me leave this team, and this loss definitely doesn't scare me, but it is frustrating to see them play this way, especially when you're getting to that November, December footballs when you're supposed to be playing your best, and the Rams came in rolling. This just wasn't their best performance. Yeah, I agree with that one. Stafford sucked. Stafford definitely didn't have a great game today. I mean, I definitely don't want to give up on Matthew Stafford like a lot of other fans. I'm not suggesting that you are, but seeing a lot of fans kind of overreact and want to get off the Stafford train already, and I just think that's an overreaction with how much he's been playing. But today was definitely not his best game. And again, you could kind of tell early on, and it was some of the decisions, some of the missed throws, but still riding with Stafford, no doubt. Daniel says, again, our run defense sucks. And that was the surprising part to me. We've seen this Rams defense face Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry. Throw in any other ones that you want that I'm forgetting that are top-tier running backs. And the Rams have done so well against even teams that are committed to the run. And today they're playing Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, who are definitely decent backs and don't get enough credit. And they've had a good year. But it was frustrating to see as the game went on, the Panthers could just continue to lean into that, get them into some favorable third downs against this Rams defense, really wear out the Rams defense. and you end up losing the game. It was definitely surprising to see that, and I'm not sure exactly what the problem was because the Panthers' offensive line was really beat up coming into this game, and they've been beat up all year. They've had to shuffle guys all around. We all know as Rams fans from that 2022 season what that looks like when you have your offensive line get beat up so bad. So I was just impressed with the Panthers and surprised by us why we couldn't stop the run against these guys when we've shown we can stop the run, and we're going up against a very beat up offensive line, and we have a very good run defense this year, one of the best run defenses in the NFL with the Rams defense. So I was definitely surprised by that too. Cue the fade. Shula got cute, taking this game for granted, and defense came out soft. Yeah, there was this defensive game plan definitely did feel very soft, and I mean, to Shula's credit, there were a couple times when he drew up that blitz and some exotic pressures, and Bryce Young just made a good play, and that was frustrating. Like that fourth down deep one to Jalen Coker. I mean, the Rams brought everybody, and they loaded the box pre-play, and there's just one-on-one. Forbes got beat over the top, and that was frustrating. But it did feel a little bit like a soft game plan, and I don't know how many adjustments Shula could have made to make this game go a little bit differently for the Rams, because it felt like sometimes it was just like their players that just weren't doing it and that weren't executing, especially against the run. They just kind of got worn down there. Donald says, I wish we could have kept the run going. It's the end of November. Yeah, you and me both. I mean, this was definitely looking like the best run game for the Rams all year between the two of them. I think they just needed more opportunities. Descendo, thanks for coming in. He says, Stafford let me down a bit. Take the sack, don't fumble. Yeah, I don't think it felt like Stafford either didn't see the guy behind him or he didn't think the guy behind him was that fast. It was one of the two, and it's obviously tough. It's those rainy conditions, the wet ball. I was, when the rain started really picking up there in the second half, I was talking to my family. I was like, this is Nate Landman punch out time. Like the ball's wet. You get to punch it out. It's slick. Unfortunately, the fumble did end up happening with the Rams and Matthew Stafford, and that obviously killed them at the end there. Daniel's so tired of us not stopping the run. Yeah, I mean, all year we've stopped the run really well. This game, though, definitely was the exception of that. Descendo, Stafford was on his way to be an MVP, and I still think, well, if you guys look at like the betting odds after this game, I don't think his odds are going to go up after this game, but I think he'll still be the front runner for the MVP. But obviously, I think the race is going to be a little bit more snug after a game like this. Cue the fade, says McVay again, with an opportunity to win the game through the Rams out of the game. You cannot convince me otherwise. It is raining for some reason, or for someone who preaches not putting the ball in harm's way. Yeah, I mean, again, I think we've seen this happen with Stafford, or not with Stafford, with McVay in his time, no matter what quarterback he has, but especially with Stafford, like he loves to lean into the passing game, and that's just his bread and butter. He's got an MVP quarterback, MVP receiver, or not MVP receiver, but future Hall of Fame receiver, an elite top 3 receiver, Puka Nacua. I understand your draw to want to pass the ball, but this game, you could kind of feel, again, it wasn't the passing offense's best game like we've seen all year, and the run game was working, so I agree. I wish they could have stuck with it for sure. But the Puka catch was amazing. Yeah, that was unbelievable. I know we lost that game, and I always get frustrated at those plays when you have such an insane highlight that you want to remember and it goes down in a loss. Sometimes it gets forgotten, but I don't want to forget about that catch. That was just insane with the wet ball back of his hand. The defender got a hand on it and Puka still came down with it. Just an incredible receiver. The Puka catch is now meaningless since they didn't win the game. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's frustrating. Only a few people are going to be like, do you remember that Puka catch? Because like sometimes with the way our brains work, it's like after a loss, you just kind of forget about those things. Muad'Dib says, it was my fault. My bro worker is a Panther fan and talked too much trash this week. I'm glad that the loss isn't in the hands of fans at all. It's never anything we can do for sure. I think it's always on coaches and players. Stafford needs to lock in going forward, and I fully expect him to. I mean, I think of this game, I think of the Eagles game in week 3 as being the outliers of games where it just felt like Stafford wasn't quite in the like rhythm of things and playing like Stafford. We know that Eagles game, he missed a bunch of throws earlier on in the year, a lot of misconnections, the turnover to Zach Bond, obviously. And then this game, those 2 interceptions. I still think that first one was just kind of fluky off the helmet of Derek Brown into the air to Nick Scott, of course, of all people. But yeah, I think he'll lock in going forward. He's had a huge sample size this season of playing well, so I definitely wouldn't overreact. It's just hard when you're in the moment like I am right now, like all of you guys are, not to overreact and be like, oh man, like why is he playing so bad? Mudeep, Jets might win, so that would be good. The Jets are playing the Falcons. Yeah, so that would help the draft stock there for the Rams. Ducendo Forbes needs to get it together too. Yeah, this was definitely one of his worst games that I can remember. He's been playing so well, and it's always frustrating when you're having players play so well and they have a bad game and people kind of forget about the way they've been playing. Kind of similar with what I think some people are thinking about Stafford. But this was definitely not Forbes' best game, and to have those two beat over the top for touchdowns on fourth down against him was just, oh man, that felt like a dagger. Cue the fade. McVay preaches about a lot about. Wait, I'm going to restart this. McVay preaches about a lot, but a game where the Rams can take control of the league. McVay's inability to not throw the ball after both backs are moving the ball consistently will be why the Rams won't win. Yeah, I definitely, again, I still think you could have won this game even with the pass happy game plan and approach, but I feel like the Rams really could have done what the Panthers were doing to us of really wearing them down because of how well we were running the ball. And then that just opens things for the passing game. But yeah, it's still crazy. We still almost came away with a win here, even with that attack there. The Bears are the number one seed now. Or is this what the people wanted? I don't know if the Bears are the number one seed right now. I think they're actually still below the Rams. Just because they beat the Eagles, I don't think that elevates them. I think that the Rams are still above them at the moment, but I could be wrong. Cue the fade. Fourth down TD showed the lack of urgency on the defensive side. Yeah, definitely. Rams let the Panthers set franchise records. Pathetic. Definitely a frustrating game for sure. Rams Mob, thanks for coming in. He said fumbled the number one seed and Stafford MVP fumbled as well. So am I wrong? I think that the Rams still have the one seed right now, even though their record is tied with the Bears. I don't think the Bears beating the Eagles head to head on Friday puts them above the Rams, but I could be wrong. If somebody knows for sure, if you could let me know. Stafford MVP, I don't think is fumbled away. I think, like I mentioned earlier, the odds are a lot closer than they were heading into this game. Stafford was like clear-cut favorite no matter what, like a wide margin going into this game. I think the margin is going to be a little bit closer between players, but I think Stafford should still be the front runner at this point. Rams Mob says, to be fair to McVay and the offense, they scored 28 points. The defense let us down today. Yeah, it is frustrating. I mean, our offense did give away 7 points because that pick six, but yeah, again, if you look at it, the Rams offense, other than the rushing yards, and even rushing yards was only a 12-yard difference, in all the yard categories, the Rams outgained the Panthers in this game. It really did come down to those turnovers, and it came down to the Panthers possessing the ball 10 or 11 minutes longer than the Rams did. Rams Mob, why was the run defense so bad? Was the rain a factor? I didn't get it. It just felt like the Panthers came to play. It felt like the Rams defense wasn't fully on it because even when Chris Shula made some adjustments to stop the run, it felt like our defense just was worn out at that point. I don't think it was necessarily the rain. I think the Panthers just stayed committed to it, and they had success early on, and the Rams just never were able to do enough to be able to stop it, which is frustrating because it really does hurt to lose to a team like that when you just see them running it down your throat the whole game. Rams swap. The announcer said it was like the 10th offensive line combination for the Panthers, and yet they won in the trenches. That was disappointing. Disappointing and like shocking in a way. Like disappointing, shocking, frustrating, all the words you could use there. Like, how do you let that happen when you have one of the best fronts in the NFL with the Los Angeles Rams? Truly, by the stats and by all the measures that you can look at, one of the best run defenses in the NFL this year have given up the fewest explosive run plays on the ground. And as you mentioned, all those different combinations there, and they ran the ball well. To me, it just comes down to just the will of the team. It felt like the Panthers were just straining longer, getting on blocks, being a little bit more technically sound. Although they did have 7 penalties for 70 yards to the Rams, 1 for 5. But yeah, I don't like the cliche of like they wanted it more because sometimes I'm like, how true really is that? But in this game, like if I were to put that on anything, it felt like the Panthers offensive line wanted it more than our front. And I don't know, like it kind of takes going back to watch like the all 22 to really see what happened, but that's just the way it felt like based on the eye test because they just kind of asserted things more. Rams Mob, clear trap game. They played down to the competition, and the Panthers played like their season was on the line. Yeah, they definitely did. That's kind of what it felt like. It felt like the Rams were coasting a little bit, just kind of cruising through this game. That felt like the Panthers were playing with pride, playing to show that they are really one of those teams. And again, they did it without Christian Roseboom, their linebacker. They did it without their safety, Trayvon Morig, who's been playing absolutely awesome. They did it without JC Horn. So, yeah, it definitely did feel like that. Felt like the Rams played a little bit down in the competition. They made those mistakes that we're not used to seeing. And I also felt like the Panthers definitely rose to the occasion, had a good game plan, and just executed better at the end of the day. Carlos says, I want to hear everyone talk about Forbes now. Now that being said, Forbes was awful. You need to get rid of him. There you go. I definitely think that the Emmanuel Forbes, like being a true lockdown number one corner conversation, has a lot of like shakiness to it now. He's been playing absolutely incredible in the games leading up to this point. And Sunday night, those 5 pass breakups, the interception, 3 consecutive games with an interception, he was playing so well. But I think this shows that we definitely need like a little bit more proof of that, just to have Forbes really be in that conversation, because this was definitely a rough day. So Scott was with his playing Shula. Carlos says Stafford is done for MVP. He blew it today. I personally don't think he's done yet. Like I keep reiterating, I think that the gap in the margin is a lot thinner. There's a lot of players closer to him, but I don't think that's his MVP case out of the window right now. McVay arrogance is also going to cost this team. We'll see. I mean, the Rams were on fire. This is one of those weird games. I really did expect. I didn't expect the Rams to be able to win out from here on out. A lot of people were thinking that we were only going to have those 2 losses in the year, one to the Niners, one to the Eagles. It did feel like there's going to be one of those weird games, because we have a few of those a year where, whether it's on McVay, whether it's on the players, you just have a weird game that you should have won and you lost. They're just as frustrating as they were before, but I did kind of expect something like this. Now, coming into this game, I'll be clear. Like, I expected the Rams to win 34, or I think I actually predicted 31-14. Regardless, I thought the Rams were going to blow out the Panthers, and the Panthers just had one of those games where they just played really well. And again, it kind of felt like the Rams played a little down to their competition for sure. Let's see. Silly Fungi, thanks for coming in. Love that name. He says, this should set the Rams pants on fire. Look out, AZ. I like the way to look at that, man. That's definitely optimistic there. I think that these kinds of games, as I talked about before, I mean, you look at losing to the Eagles, you look at losing to the 49ers, both of those games really lit the fire under the Rams, helped them to correct things. And again, you learn things when you win games, but you learn them more when you lose them. And so it's all about the response now. McVay always talks about that. I think we can be a little overdramatic with our team, no matter if they should have won this game or not. Only has 3 losses on the year out of 12 games that we've played. Like, they are still set up in such a good situation. But I mean, to be fair, the NFC West is crazy competitive. The Seahawks are right behind us. 49ers are right behind us. We're obviously trying to fight off for that number 1 seed. So I understand the frustration, but at least we're in a good position here. Hopefully are able to respond next week. Carlos, no, they called that terrible play on the red zone early when Stafford gets his pass deflected. They were running the ball, and he just needed to throw the dang ball. How about run it there? Yeah, I mean, that was just a weird play bouncing off the helmet for sure. Carlos says no blitzes at all, just a disgrace. I did feel like the Rams did blitz, definitely not to the level that I was expecting, but I did feel like we did blitz even on, again, that 4th down to Jalen Coker over the top. The Rams brought everybody on a heavy, like, stacked box before the play, and they just beat us over the top. But I definitely wish we could have gotten in Bryce Young's face more. Even on that game-winning play that Bryce had over the middle to Jalen Coker again, it felt like he had all day to be able to throw that football. And partially was probably because the Rams defense was so exhausted by that point in the game with how long they were on the field. But another part of it was like, man, I wish we could have just brought pressure on him and get in his face and make him make a bad decision. But soft coverage on 4th down instead of blitzing. Yeah, that was definitely very frustrating. Let's see. I definitely disagree with this comment. Also, versus overrated. He never makes a big play when needed. I think we got spoiled with Aaron Donald. With, like, it felt like anytime the Rams needed a big play in his career, he would be the one making the play, even going down to that playoff run in 2021. But I don't think versus overrated. I think we still need to see him take that next step to be in that category of like a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt, like that thing where it's just pure dominance. And as you mentioned, like making the big play when it's needed. I will admit, like, I don't think we've seen that fully unlocked yet, where he just comes in clutch and makes a big play. I mean, we saw it last year against the Saints in their house. He came up and stripped the ball from behind to win the game. But I wouldn't say he's overrated. I just don't think he's in that category of like tier 1 elite edge rushers, bar none kind of thing. I think he's still getting there, but I wouldn't say he's overrated, but that's my personal opinion. They need a premier pass rusher who can make a play. I mean, I don't know about that. The Worm, thanks for coming in. I love the picture and the name. Lots of Rams cast-offs on the Panthers were on a mission. 3 Stafford turnovers didn't help the cause. 8 feet tall wide receivers are tough to cover. Yeah, definitely frustrating. Thanks for your insight on that. Definitely a lot of former Rams there. Nick Scott, of course, getting the interception on Matthew Stafford. Yeah, frustrating. Wish the Rams could have won. Rams are losing to the Lions and getting killed by Lions for sure. Number 6, 7, 8 seed and probably 1 and out in the playoffs. Not good enough. I mean, I'll just push back on that. I personally don't think that we're that far down in the dumps. Like, just looking at where this Rams team was coming into this, the amount of teams that they were beating, the good caliber teams that they've been beating. I personally think, and this is just my opinion, like I just don't think it's time to overreact yet. This is a weird game. Again, I feel like we get a few of these a year, and Rams did not play like they should have. They made a lot of mistakes. They were playing very uncharacteristic, but I don't think that this is how the season's going to end. And personally, I hope I'm right for all of us so that we can have the season end in a better way. But thanks for your insight there, man. Juno Trooper, McVay always learns from losses. We'll be all right. I like that. I like that kind of comment there. I agree. It feels like there's always a fire lit under him, and he comes out swinging there. So it's always crazy for me to think of like us Rams fans. We get so frustrated and annoyed in a loss like this, and they sting. But like, imagine how it feels for the coaches and players who have to watch the film and deal with this. So definitely expect a response. If we don't get a response when we play the Arizona Cardinals next week and we come out flat there, maybe you can begin to have some conversations, but I do think that they'll come back and respond in the right way. No, Rams are done. They got exposed today. Shula is a coward. He's soft, and the Rams didn't play a true super or don't have a true superstar on defense. They don't have a guy who can win a game on the defense. I appreciate your insight. I personally just disagree with that. I think there's a lot of guys that can make a play on this defense, and we've seen them do that all year. I don't think that you need to have one true guy that always makes the play. And I think the Rams team has shown you that it can be multiple different guys that can make a play. And Shula has had a large palette of games that he has called and that he's done really well. He's in head coaching conversations for a reason. I think we're quick to overreact after a loss, no matter how bad it was. Because you guys remember back to week 5 against the 49ers, all of us were complaining about, like, what was this game plan? It was so soft. We were backed off playing right into the 49ers' hands, and they won that game. And after that, surely enough, he's strung together so many consecutive great games for the Rams and their defense, and they've been playing so well since then. He's in that head coaching conversation for a reason, as I mentioned. So I don't really want to give up on him. I still have a lot of faith because of what he's shown us. I just don't think we can overreact after like one game here and then that Niners game. Rams mob, I'm not too feeling bad about the loss. Still 9-3, still a contender. Everything bad that happened was uncharacteristic. This is kind of where I rest right here, Rams mob. I mean, again, 9 wins, 3 losses. That is a really good record. It's unfortunate the NFC is so good because you got the Bears with the same record right behind us. And you got the Seahawks who are nipping at our heels. You got the Niners nipping at our heels. So like that's the annoying part about it all is I feel like 9-3 in past years would be enough to clearly be the number 1 seed for right now, and teams would be a couple games back behind you. But I mean, this NFC is definitely competitive, but I do like where the Rams stand right now with the 9 wins. They do have to continue to string together wins, but they were just on a 6-game win streak. And again, like you said, the loss was a lot of uncharacteristic things. Panthers had a good game plan, but we just didn't play to what we normally do. And I feel like you usually see that with the losses this year to the Niners, to the Eagles, and now to the Panthers. A lot of the times it's the Rams kind of making those mistakes that we aren't used to, and that usually costs them the game. So I guess it's sort of encouraging if you look at it that way. Silly fungi, ancient astronomers attempted to measure the exact time between sunrises. After 24 hours, they give up and called it a day. I like that. The Worm says this loss comes down to McVay reverting to a bad play call. Rams running backs were doing good work. They definitely were 150 plus rushing yards on only 20 carries, 2 touchdowns. I mean, they just looked really good on the ground today. And I think the Rams passing offense did look good today, but it didn't feel like it was a consistently well-oiled machine kind of unit like we're used to seeing, even going back to a week ago against the Buccaneers. And so, yeah, I wish they did lean into that run game. They were still passing the ball well in terms of the amount of yards they were getting. but those turnovers were definitely frustrating, definitely cost the Rams the game, obviously, with those turnovers. And again, I have to give credit to the Panthers in some way because I feel like there were a couple of dropbacks that we saw where it was longer developing plays, but Stafford's back there and the offensive line is holding up for 5-6 seconds and he's just looking around, and there's nobody open. And I don't know how the Panthers were doing that on a few of those plays against this receiving core without JC Horn, but I mean, that was definitely an impressive effort that they had there. And I do think that the Rams move well through the air, but it was those turnovers that definitely cost them. And that's what it's going to come down to for sure. Rams mob, Nick Scott, Austin Corbett, Ashawn Robinson, Bobby Brown, Rose Boom, Robert Rochelle, all former Rams on the Panthers. Isn't that crazy? And then their defensive coordinator, Jarrell Evero, came from the Rams. That Super Bowl year was his last year with the Rams. So definitely a lot of former Rams, and just wish we would have came on the positive end of the stick there. Juno Trooper, I think the loss comes down to poor run defense. Yeah, I mean, I really do think if you like Bryce Young had his plays, he played really well. But I really don't think that this win was all on him just completely balling out. His stat line is great. He made the throws when he needed to make the throws. But I did feel like the run game there for the Panthers really set it up for them. The long drives, easy third downs, quick screen game, all that kind of stuff where it did feel like if the Rams were able to stop that run like they have been all year and put it in Bryce Young's hands, I felt like if you were to throw the ball 30 to 40 times this game, just trying to play keep up because the Rams' run defense was good, we would have had a couple turnovers there. Like I really felt confident about that, but they definitely did really well against our defense on the ground for sure. We saw today why they wanted to move up for McMillan. He's nice. He's definitely nice. Yeah, and imagine like McMillan in a Rams offense too. That'd be incredible. But oh man, that dagger definitely hurt there for that deep touchdown, the last one that they had. Again on a fourth down, it's frustrating to see that. Both of those were the case of the Rams being aggressive man coverage, which I like on those shorter kind of things rather than playing backed off and give it to them. But they got toasted on both of those for sure. The Wormcorn averaged over 10 yards at carry. Williams almost 6. Yeah, they were running it really well. Definitely tough to see them go away from it, but those two guys definitely had a great day there. Peng West YouTube, thanks for coming in. He says this is Stafford's and Forbes' fault. Yeah, I definitely think you can point to both of those guys having a bad game, and very frustrating to see that be the result of it because those two guys definitely stood out as like, oh man, like I wish these guys could have been doing a little bit better. Stafford, I will give him credit. Like he had those turnovers and you hate to see it. And I don't want to just sound like I'm defending Stafford no matter what he does, but he also made some incredible throws. Also had that no-look touchdown to Devontae. Like he still did his thing. He's not one of those quarterbacks that completely just shuts down when he's having a bad game. Like he'll come back and make incredible throws and still dice up a defense. But again, it's tough to win games when you have 3 turnovers on the offense and when you have a team in the Panthers who were just possessing the ball, moving it down the field, converting on fourth downs. Like that's just not a good recipe for success and just frustrating to see for sure, especially with the expectations that the Rams have. I mean, I will say I'm glad this game wasn't in prime time and that we didn't lay an egg in prime time. Like the whole world got to see us at our peak. I really do think the Rams are going to return back to their peak again and that this is not going to be a trend for them and they're not going to be mediocre or bad the rest of the year like some people think. I really do think the Rams are going to be able to turn it around. I was expecting a loss like this. We may even get one more by the time the year is over. We'll see. But I have confidence in this coaching staff. I have confidence in the players that we have. They've just shown us too much for me just to completely jump off of this and give up on them as a whole. So those are kind of my thoughts on it, on this game. Frustrating. Hopefully this live stream treated like a therapy session for you guys who needed it because Rams losses are tough to swallow. They certainly are, especially when we got a team like this. But that's just about going to do it for me. Thanks, everybody, for your comments, for watching, and just for giving your feedback, whether I agreed with it or whether I didn't. I really do appreciate you guys just coming in, talking Rams with me, helping me kind of talk it out a little bit to be able to get over this loss. Hopefully we'll be able to get back on track here in the next week against the Cardinals. Definitely excited for that. Next time you guys will see me will be Wednesday, probably, in all likelihood, on First Down Rams with Paleo Time. So keep an eye out for that. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys have a great day. Horns up and God bless, guys. Hope you have a great one.